Emily Carter had never imagined her life could be worth so little. At 19, she still believed that if she kept folding flower bouquets, tending to the tiny garden behind the neighborhood florist, maybe the world would stay quiet, at least quieter than the moldy kitchen that always reeked of her father Henry Carter's cheap whiskey. Henry had always been the only father Emily knew, but never her protector. Since her mother passed, he had spiraled into gambling debts and nightly drunken rages. Emily had grown numb to the smell of stale beer and the sound of plates shattering like an anthem echoing through their crumbling Queens apartment. That day, rain drizzled against the cracked window as Emily crouched over the garden bed, wiping leaves clean. The front door slammed open so hard it rattled the thin walls. Henry staggered in, breath sour with liquor, and threw a stack of papers onto the chipped wooden table. "Congratulations, sweetheart, you're finally worth something. You're nothing but a receipt to me now." Emily stared at the rain-specked pages, her fingers trembling as she flipped through them. Her name, Henry's signature, a law firm stamp. And the figure, $500,000, 0 cents. "Dad." "What is this?" Her voice broke under the weight of dread. Henry barked out a laugh, the laugh of a man who had pawned his soul for liquor long ago. "Money. Enough for me to live like a real man. You'll take care of some big shot in Manhattan. He's been sleeping for ages. All you gotta do is stay by his side, like a pretty little doll." Emily backed up until her spine pressed against the peeling wall. The damp kitchen seemed to shrink around her. "You sold me?" The words spilled out before she could stop them. "Sold? I traded you for my freedom. You owe me 19 years of scraps and rent. Now you pay it back." Emily wanted to scream, to shred the papers into confetti, but her shaking hands could only clutch her chest as if to hold her heart together. In her father's glassy eyes, she was nothing more than merchandise, worth less than his nightly glass of whiskey. The sleek black limousine waited outside Emily's house at dawn the next day, a silent reminder that she had no way back. Mr. Alan Ford, the elderly chauffeur in a crisp suit, only gave her a solemn nod, eyes soft with something like pity, yet offering no comforting words. Henry didn't bother to see his daughter off. As Emily dragged her small suitcase down the creaking porch steps, she glimpsed her father slumped in a kitchen chair, counting fresh bills with trembling fingers, already whispering to himself about tonight's whiskey. When the car door slammed shut behind her, Emily pressed her forehead to the cold glass window. The shabby house receded like a nightmare dissolving in daylight, but the pain in her chest stayed. Alan steered the limousine smoothly through Queens's cramped streets, leaving old bruises behind. Crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan rose before her eyes. Skyscrapers stabbed into misty clouds. Streetlights cast golden veins across rain-slicked asphalt. Emily swallowed a sob. She understood. Ahead lay a golden cage, grander than the rotting kitchen she'd escaped, but a cage nonetheless. Nearly an hour later, the limousine glided to a halt before an ornate wrought iron gate. Beyond it stood a pale, three-storied mansion that seemed to float apart from the noisy pulse of New York, hidden among manicured hedges and perfectly clipped trees. Alan stepped out, opened her door, and bowed slightly. Emily stepped onto the polished marble driveway, Queens mud still clinging to her worn shoes. At the top of the stone steps, a woman waited. She wore a black trench coat, hair pulled into a flawless bun, eyes cold as cut steel. Victoria Green, the household manager and undisputed gatekeeper of the Hayes estate. Victoria's gaze swept over Emily's rumpled hair, her faded shoes. A smile thin as a knife's edge curved her lips. "Emily Carter, I presume? Younger than I expected, and far more unspoiled. Perfect." Emily nodded faintly, fighting the panic tightening her throat. "I'm here to care for Mr. Nathaniel Hayes." Victoria gave a dry chuckle, her voice like a blade snapping shut. "Oh, darling, you're not just a nurse. In this house, every present serves a particular purpose. You'll understand soon enough. For now, wash the dirt of your old life off and prepare to meet him." Before Emily could ask more, Victoria spun on her heel and swept inside. Emily had no choice but to clutch her suitcase, draw a trembling breath, and step forward. From this moment on, every exit had vanished behind her, and ahead lay only the labyrinth of Mr. Hayes' secret world. Inside the Hayes mansion, the hallway felt like a cathedral wrapped in crystal light and hush. Beneath Emily's feet, the Persian carpet muffled every step until she almost wondered if she was floating. Ahead, Victoria Green strode without glancing back to check if her new companion could keep up. "Remember this," Victoria said, her voice cold mist creeping down Emily's neck. "You are not here to be clever. Your job is simple. Appear when required, stay silent when ordered, and never ask what you shouldn't know." Emily clenched her suitcase handle. Her heart hammered as she drifted past oil portraits of stern-faced Hazen ancestors, eyes as sharp and unforgiving as Victoria's own. They stopped before a heavy mahogany door carved with intricate motifs. Victoria pushed it open. A warm golden light spilled out, so different from the chill of the hall. Emily froze at the threshold. The room was as large as her entire old apartment. Cream walls, thick silk drapes, discreet medical equipment hidden among antique furnishings. In the center, a king-size bed draped in spotless white sheets cradled Nathaniel Hayes, perfectly still. Emily swallowed hard. He didn't look old at all. His features were refined, dark hair combed neatly, his jaw clean-shaven. He looked like a man deep in peaceful sleep, the kind that never wakes. Victoria stepped to the bedside, her tone flat as a professor's lecture. "Mr. Hayes has lain here for 2.5 years. His body is flawless, his organs healthy. Only the brain remains locked. Doctors say he needs human sensory stimulation. Your presence is part of that therapy." Emily's voice cracked. "You mean I have to?" Victoria turned, closing the distance until Emily smelled her cool, sharp perfume. She murmured, voice fine as a silk thread, "Darling, a man like Mr. Hayes does not need a nurse. He needs a heartbeat beside him, warmth, skin, a lullaby. Do you understand?" Blood drained from Emily's face. She shook her head desperately. "I'm not a prostitute." Victoria's soft chuckle dripped like poison. She lifted a finger, brushing Emily's chin like coaxing a stray cat. "Of course not. You're special. Tonight, just sit with him, talk, sing if you wish, and learn silence. Trust me, it's the only way." Before Emily could protest, Victoria glided out, leaving the door slightly ajar. Emily stood alone in the room, staring at the man who slept untouched by time or noise. No one remained. She closed the door, trembling, then sank into the chair by the bed. Carefully, she reached out and brushed the back of Nathaniel's hand. So warm, achingly real. Tears pricked her lashes. Bowing her head, Emily softly hummed the old lullaby her mother once sang when she still dared to dream of a safe, gentle home. In the nights that followed, Emily Carter lived like a ghost, drifting quietly through the gilded corners of the Hayes mansion. By day, Victoria Green drilled cold rules into her mind: never leave Nathaniel's room for more than an hour, never speak idly to anyone, and under no circumstances should anyone see her cry. But at night, when the grandfather clock struck midnight, and only the soft hum of the ventilator and the warm glow of a bedside lamp kept her company, Emily did the one thing she believed in. She told stories to the sleeping man. She whispered about the little garden back in Queens, about days spent selling flowers on street corners, about her mother, the woman who had taught her that short, fragile lullaby. Each small tale slipped from her lips beside the bed, sometimes tangled with tears she wiped away in secret. At first, Nathaniel remained as unmoving as stone, but Emily began noticing the smallest things. A sharp breath escaping his lungs when she laughed, fingers twitching ever so slightly when she spoke of her father, and on some nights, his long lashes flickering as if they battled restless dreams. "Can you hear me, Mr. Hayes?" she whispered, eyes fixed on his sealed lips. "I won't leave you. Just listen to my voice, okay?" Margaret Lopez, the older night nurse, always scoffed at Emily's hopes. She would mutter sternly while changing dressings or adjusting IV lines, "Girl, he's an expensive corpse. Save your tears." But Emily would only press her lips tight, warming Nathaniel's hand with a damp cloth, as if that ritual alone could keep loneliness at bay. On the 10th night, while she softly sang that old lullaby, her voice trembling with exhaustion, Emily witnessed something no one would believe. A glimmer at the corner of Nathaniel's eye. A tear, round and clear, slid down his rigid cheek. Emily's breath caught in her throat, the warm cloth falling from her hand. She covered her mouth, her own tears breaking free. Hater. It wasn't a reflex, nor an accident. It fell exactly when her lullaby whispered its last promise. Everything will be all right. Dreams will find their way home. She leaned in, her lips trembling, whispering into Nathaniel's ear, voice cracking under the weight of her heartbeat. "You're here, aren't you? I know you hear me." But Margaret entered just then. She glanced at the damp trail on Nathaniel's cheek and shrugged dismissively. "Just a normal reflex, Miss Carter. Don't let your mind wander." Emily didn't argue. Inside her, a fierce certainty burned bright. If he were only empty flesh, why would he cry at her lullaby? She knew some hidden piece of Nathaniel's soul was knocking on the door to come back. That night, before leaving his bedside, she leaned down, clutching his hand tight. Her voice cracked, breaking apart into breathless fragments. "I'm here, Mr. Hayes, until the day you open your eyes and say my name." On the 14th night, spring rain tapped softly against the rose garden window. Emily sat as she always did, leaning slightly toward Nathaniel Hayes, the motionless man who had filled every corner of her thoughts for the past 2 weeks. She sang the final line of her lullaby, her eyes drooping from exhaustion. The steady beep of the heart monitor and the hush of the ventilator lulled her into a light sleep. For the first time, Emily drifted off right beside him, her head resting near his warm, breathing hand. In her dream, she saw Nathaniel standing among the roses, under a soft golden light. He called her name, voice raspy but warm. She ran to him, grasped his hand, and he gripped hers tightly in return. Suddenly, the heart monitor's steady rhythm spiked sharply. Emily jolted awake, gasping. She looked over. Nathaniel's fingers curled inward, then slowly released, a feeble fist raised in defiance against the darkness. "Can you hear me?" she whispered, her trembling hands clasping his. For a heartbeat, his hand squeezed back, weak but real. Emily's pulse thundered. She pressed closer, lips brushing his ear. "Nathaniel Hayes, if you hear me, give me a sign. One squeeze, one breath, anything." As if summoned, his breathing hitched, growing rapid, the numbers on the monitor dancing wildly. His eyelids, sealed for 2.5 years, quivered violently, fighting to break free from the chains of silence. Emily held her breath, feeling his fingers tighten around hers, stronger now, desperate not to lose the only anchor pulling him back to the light. Then, painfully slow, Nathaniel's eyes fluttered open. In the faint glow of the bedside lamp, his gaze crashed into her like a silent storm, clouded with lingering sleep, but brimming with raw life. "Ooh, you?" The sound cracked, a prayer torn free from a stone cave. Emily couldn't hold back her tears. She cradled his hand in both of hers, her voice trembling. "It's Emily. Emily Carter. I've been here all this time. Do you remember?" Nathaniel blinked laboriously. His lips parted, a faint grimace twisting his face as vocal cords long unused strained to obey. Still, he moved his fingers again, brushing her knuckles. A silent promise. "I remember. That voice? That light?" Emily's tears splashed onto his hand. In that fragile second, every ache, every nightmare, every humiliation of being sold vanished. There was only this man, clinging to her voice and warmth like a final lifeline. But reason clawed at her calm. She darted a glance around the room, panic stirring. If Victoria or Margaret found out too soon, they might restrain him again. Or worse. Nathaniel seemed to read the fear flickering in her eyes. He gathered what little strength he had left, managing a faint, reassuring smile. A smile that told Emily he was truly back. "Mr. Hayes, I'll protect you. I swear. Trust me," she whispered, as his eyes closed once more. Not into that endless sleep again, but gathering strength for the war waiting beyond this fragile night. The next morning, sunlight slipped through thick silk curtains, casting the first rays of dawn on Nathaniel Hayes' face. The face of a man newly reclaimed from darkness. Emily sat by his bed, her eyes red from a sleepless night, her hands locked tightly around his as if to anchor him in this world. Nathaniel had drifted back to sleep, but it was no longer the bottomless sleep of a living corpse. His breathing was steady, his fingers twitching now and then, testing the edges of his new reality. The door creaked open. Margaret Lopez entered, carrying a tray of medication and a file. Her tired eyes skimmed Emily before halting on the monitor's flickering numbers. The anomaly was unmistakable. Brain activity, which doctors had written off as dead, now pulsed with steady signals, like a machine restarting after years of cold silence. "What in God's name?" Margaret murmured, her pen trembling as she scribbled notes. Emily kept calm, squeezing Nathaniel's hand beneath the covers. She knew the secret couldn't hide forever, and as she feared, news spread faster than any whispered prayer. Within the hour, Victoria Green stormed in, her high heels hammering the polished floor like gunfire, her eyes sliced through Emily before locking on Nathaniel's half-open eyes, which now feigned sleep, breath steady as an actor's finest performance. "Miss Carter, step outside. I need to speak with the doctors alone." Victoria's voice was steel sharpened to a blade. Emily shook her head slightly. "I'm sorry, I can't leave him." Victoria's eyes narrowed. For a heartbeat, her gaze turned serpent-like, caught mid-slither. But she recovered, her smile taut and poisonous. "Fine, stay if you wish to witness everything." That night, when the house finally fell quiet, Nathaniel signaled for Emily to lean close. His voice, still ragged, cut through the shadows like a knife. "Victoria has been embezzling my money the entire time I was under," Nathaniel rasped, eyes glinting with a predator's clarity. "She hired private lawyers, funneled money through shell companies. And she didn't act alone." Emily clutched his hand tighter, whispering back, "Who else? Who dared?" Nathaniel stared at the ceiling, a bitter line curling at his lips. "Vanessa Moore, my ex-fiancée? She paid someone to sabotage my car, sending me into that pole on a rainy night. When she learned I survived, she struck a deal with Victoria to keep me under. For the money?" Emily froze. She felt the blood drain from her face, but didn't let go of him. He drew a deep, burning breath. "You weren't the first, Emily. There were 3 before you. Carmen, Maria, Anna, Victoria bought them to keep me warm. They either vanished or got locked away. She used my fortune to bury every trace." Emily shook her head, tears flooding her eyes. "I won't disappear. I won't let them pull you back under." Nathaniel managed a faint smile, his big warm hand brushing away her salty tears. "I lay in darkness for 2.5 years. You were the only light that dragged me back. Now I'm awake, and no one will ever make me sleep again." He leaned in closer, voice coiling like a caged wolf ready to leap. "Tomorrow we start. Victoria first, then Vanessa." Emily buried her face in the crook of his neck, her sobs muffled. She knew, tonight, the beast had awakened, and nothing on earth could stop it from taking back everything it had lost. That morning, the Hayes mansion was no longer the calm sanctuary Emily once knew. Phones buzzed nonstop, heavy footsteps echoed as unfamiliar men in black suits passed by, and Victoria Green commanded staff like a queen reigning over trembling subjects. Every glance Victoria cast at Emily was icy, a blade brushing her throat. Emily knew the serpent had sensed her prey was slipping away. As dusk settled in, Victoria entered Nathaniel's room with 2 hulking bodyguards. She smiled at Emily, her voice dripping honey. "Emily, darling, you've done so much. The doctors need quiet to help Mr. Hayes recover. Go home for a few days. I've arranged everything." Emily stepped back, planting herself firmly between the bed and Victoria. Her voice no longer trembled like the sold girl she once was. "I'm not leaving." Victoria flicked her gaze at Nathaniel, then at the bodyguards, her tone turning to carved stone. "You think you have a choice? Take her out." The men closed in. Emily twisted, clutching the bed frame, her cry raw. "Mr. Hayes, help me." Nathaniel strained to sit up, his arm stretching weakly toward her, voice gravelly. "Emily, don't be afraid." One guard yanked her away, tearing her from Nathaniel's reach. His voice boomed, thunder trapped in a fragile body. "Alan, protect her." But Alan Ford was at the door, holding his ground with Nathaniel's loyal security team, blocking Victoria's thugs from swarming the room and harming their master. His eyes locked on Emily's. "Forgive me, I must guard him first." Victoria leaned close, her breath poison-laced sugar. "Back where you belong, Emily Carter. Trash like you doesn't belong here." Pinned between 2 iron grips, Emily was shoved through the wrought iron gates as twilight cloaked the estate. A black SUV waited. One guard flung open the door, shoving her inside like worthless cargo. She sobbed, pounding her fists against the window, watching the mansion shrink behind rain-specked glass. Somewhere in there, Nathaniel was fighting a pack of wolves alone. Night swallowed the streets by the time the SUV dumped her at the decrepit wooden house in Queens, the same prison she'd spent a lifetime trying to escape. Henry Carter, her father, sat on the porch, fingers rifling through greasy bills Victoria had handed him to watch over his daughter. The guard gave her one last shove, voice gruff. "Done. Keep her locked up." Henry looked up, liquor glazing his eyes bloodshot, his lips twisted into a sneer. "Back home, huh? My girl's no different from a milk cow. Dry her up, lock her up." The rotting door slammed shut behind Emily. In the stale kitchen rank with mold and cheap whiskey, she sank to the floor, hugging her chest tight. Above her, a flickering bulb swung in the draft, seeping through cracked windows. But deep inside Emily, one thing stayed unshaken, the warmth of Nathaniel's hand branded on her heart. He had promised he would come. No hell would hold her forever, Emily knew. Nathaniel Hayes would tear down every chain to bring her home. 3 days after Emily was forced back to her old house, Nathaniel Hayes wasted not a single heartbeat, tightening a noose around the vultures that had feasted on him for 2.5 years. He summoned his private lawyers, personally signed off on investigations tracking every cent Victoria Green had siphoned through her phantom companies. Evidence fell into place like a checkmate he'd crafted in silence. Documents, testimonies, even hidden camera footage from Victoria's office she'd believed erased forever. Within 48 hours, the once comatose financial king turned predator again, devouring every traitor on his own turf. Meanwhile, Vanessa Mord, the ex-fiancée, crumbled inside the courtroom. She trembled as prosecutors revealed how Nathaniel's brakes had been deliberately disabled that rainy night. The mechanic's confession, reading wire transfers straight from Vanessa's account, sliced her sugary lies into pieces under the judge's cold stare. The 3 women before Emily, Carmen, Maria, and Anna, were secretly protected by Nathaniel's guards and moved from the sham care centers Victoria had built as cages. For the first time in years, they sat face to face with justice, telling every ugly truth without fearing a bullet in the night. Victoria Green was cuffed right inside her plush office. Charges: human trafficking, abuse, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder. Her regal composure dissolved into a twisted mask of panic as cameras flashed. Vanessa wailed in designer handcuffs, the same wrists that once flaunted diamonds to fool Nathaniel, now shackled by iron rings. But while Nathaniel restored law and order, Henry Carter, Emily's so-called father, crawled back like a rat sniffing for crumbs. He called Nathaniel, his voice slurred with booze. "You took my girl back too soon. I ain't spent all that money. Give me more, hear me? or I'll drag her back here myself." Nathaniel ended the call, his steely eyes as cold as a frozen lake. He didn't send security. He drove himself, gripping the wheel of his black SUV, 2 escort cars trailing him like loyal wolves. Destination? That filthy Queen Street Henry dared to call home. When Emily cracked the door open, hair tangled, eyes puffy from fresh bruises, Nathaniel was already there. Henry stood on the porch behind her, reeking of stale whiskey, mid-rant with a bottle swinging from his fist. Nathaniel didn't wait. He strode forward, hand like steel on Henry's collar, then slammed a thick wad of cash onto the rotting floorboards. "Here, your final piece. From now on, she's mine." Henry stammered, spit flecking his beard. "You got no right. She's my daughter." Nathaniel's eyes turned to ice, his voice a death sentence spoken low. "If you come near her again, you'll disappear off this earth, and no one will ever find your bones." Henry's whole body shook, eyes wide with real fear for the first time in years. In that moment, Emily stepped forward, brushing Nathaniel's arm aside, facing the man who ruined her girlhood. Her words struck harder than any slap. "You were never my father. Fathers don't sell their daughters." She turned, her small hand curling tight around Nathaniel's solid grip. He glanced down, a rare smile breaking through, the smile of a man who had clawed his way back to the light and now carried her there too. They stepped through the sagging door, leaving behind Henry's drunken curses, leaving behind every shadow and bruise. Before Emily lay only a straight road back to freedom, and a love no filthy money could ever buy again. The lakeside villa lay deep within a pine forest on New York's outskirts, far from the skyscrapers, far from the lies that had shackled Nathaniel Hayes for 2.5 long years. The black car rolled to a slow stop before the wooden door, warm yellow light spilling onto a leaf-carpeted path. Inside the car, Emily's fingers trembled slightly, her heart hammering like a child seeing true freedom for the first time. Nathaniel stepped out first, opened her door like a gentleman forged from both old-world charm and raw survival. His face was lean, but his eyes blazed, brighter than the flames waiting inside the hearth. Together, they crossed the threshold. The living room, paneled with sturdy oak, smelled faintly of fresh pine sap. Firelight flickered, painting shadows on 2 souls who had weathered too many storms. No doctors. No prying eyes or greedy hands ready to rip Emily apart again. Only Nathaniel and Emily, and 2 hearts now beating in a perfect, hard-earned rhythm. He sank into the armchair by the fire, pulling her onto his lap. For the first time, Emily felt no fear, looking deep into his eyes, once sealed shut like prison doors. "You know," Nathaniel murmured, his voice ragged yet brimming with life, "when I was trapped in the dark, only your voice guided me back. I swore, if I ever got another chance, I would never lose you again." Emily said nothing. She simply placed her hand over his chest, where his heart thudded fiercely, a vow made flesh. Gently, Nathaniel lifted her off his lap and lowered himself to one knee, his knee sinking into the thick rug before the crackling fire. A small black velvet box rested in his hand. Simple, but the platinum inside outshone every ugly memory she'd ever carried. "Emily Carter." His voice trembled amidst the pop and hiss of burning logs. "It took me 2.5 years to learn that real love needs no fortress, no empire, just one person. You. My home." Emily's breath hitched, her eyes glistened, her hand clamped over her mouth to quiet the sobs rising inside. "Will you marry me? Let me protect you, so you never feel alone again. I swear, every scar from our past will become the strength of our present. I'll shield you for the rest of my days." The platinum ring caught the firelight. Emily's trembling hand rose, letting Nathaniel slide it onto her finger. One nod, one broken yes, caught in her throat, yet it set the whole room blazing, warmer than the flames crackling beside them. Outside, the forest wind brushed the glassy surface, humming a new song. Beside the fire, a girl, once sold for scraps, now held a real home within the arms of a man who had died and come back to life just for her. A month after the lakeside proposal, the villa still wore its gentle spring coat. Wildflowers bloomed among the pines, and breezes carried the fresh scent of new earth and tender grass through the slightly cracked wooden windows. In the cozy kitchen, Emily Carter stood by the stove, gently stirring a steaming teapot. From the living room drifted Nathaniel Hayes' warm voice, handling leftover business calls. But there was no hint of the icy command, no trace of the ruthless power he'd wielded when he was the immovable king. Emily glanced at the platinum ring gleaming on her finger, her heart still fluttering whenever memories rose, being sold like property, locked away in a cold room, then rescued by the same hand that now offered her a real home. Nathaniel appeared behind her, sliding his arms around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. His voice was soft, mingling with the tea's warmth. "It's all done. Victoria and Vanessa won't trouble you again." She tilted her head, a gentle smile curving her lips. "I'm not afraid of them anymore, as long as you keep your promise." He turned her to face him, his dark eyes like the lake outside, but deeper, calmer than any place she'd ever known. "I promised, and I'll keep it for life." Together, they carried the tea tray to the back porch, where Nathaniel had set up a small wooden table. By the lake, sunlight danced on rippling water. Distant wild ducks dipped beneath the surface. Emily settled into her chair, his hand still wrapped firmly around hers, an unbreakable cord binding two souls that had survived hell. "I'm stepping back from half my empire," Nathaniel said, his eyes never straying from her face, soaking in every tiny shift of her smile. "I'll keep just enough for projects that mean something. Nothing matters more than seeing you smile each morning." Emily laughed, clear and bright, mingling with the forest bird song. "I don't need anything but you, and freedom, and this little house." On that lakeside porch, under the spring sun, they were no longer an orphan girl and a powerful magnate, just two ordinary people learning how to love each other wholly, with no chains, no secrets. Tomorrow might still bring storms, but Emily knew she had a man who would walk through every hurricane just to hold her hand, to wrap her in arms once frozen but now warmer than the sun. A true home, a new life, and a love worth beginning again, but never surrendering. 6 months later, the garden behind the lakeside villa awoke under a sweet summer afternoon. Golden sunset drenched the pines, drizzling honey light over wildflowers that stretched shyly toward the breeze. In that garden, beneath strings of twinkling fairy lights strung between tree branches, the private wedding of Nathaniel Hayes and Emily Carter unfolded quietly, sacred as a miracle scribbled into reality. The guest list was short. Aside from Alan Ford, the loyal old chauffeur, Margaret was there too, now head nurse of the Charity Foundation. But the most special guests were Carmen, Maria, Anna, and many other young women once trapped in darkness, now free because Nathaniel and Emily pulled them back into the light. They stood among the trees, eyes misty but lips curved in soft smiles, because Nathaniel and Emily's love was proof. Darkness can be defeated, wounds can mend, and the human heart still has room for kindness to bloom again. After Alan's brief blessing, Nathaniel took Emily's hands, his eyes deep enough to hold the night sky and the flame that had saved him from the abyss. "Emily Carter, you woke me from the dark, and I swear I will love you, protect you, until my very last breath." His voice was low, his chest trembling beneath his light-colored suit. Emily could only nod, tears tracing her cheeks, while her smile outshone every star overhead. They exchanged rings, sealing a bond that had survived every betrayal, every haunting ghost. When gentle music drifted across the flower-scented air, Nathaniel slipped his arm around Emily's waist, guiding her in slow, quiet dance steps beneath the golden lights. All around them, the rescued girls, now sisters, companions, clapped and hummed along, weaving hope into a simple melody that promised tomorrow would outshine yesterday. In that shimmering light, the past folded shut. An old chapter ended to make way for a life where love no longer hid behind iron doors or lulled anyone into hopeless sleep. Hand in hand, Nathaniel and Emily stepped across the soft grass. The glowing villa ahead, the darkness surrendered behind them. They knew this happiness was worth guarding with every heartbeat, ready to be reborn again and again, each new day,